Hi, everyone. I am Geraldine Anello, your host. Welcome back. We are here at A Whole Musician, where I have conversations with professionals from different fields to help musicians on topics ranging from money and finances to relationships, emotional well-being, and anything in between, so that their entire life supports them and their career as musicians. Today's guest is branding expert Morgan DiPietro. Hi, Morgan.
Hi, guys.
So happy to have you here. So everyone, Morgan is a graphic and web designer. She's working as the graphic designer at Star Chapter. She has a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Graphic and Interactive Design, and she knows things such as advertising, digital media, graphic design, interactive, and web design, typography, and what we're going to talk about the most today, visual branding. We're so excited to have you here. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here and talk to everyone and share my knowledge.
So I'm so excited because I genuinely don't know anything about branding. I was thinking about talking to you today and I was like, I like all musicians, I know it's very important, but like, I think many musicians, I have no idea where to start. Like, it's like branding is this thing, you can tell it's there when it's there, but it seems so overwhelming with all the different platforms and the visuals. And if you're a musician, maybe your skills are more like audio based and not visual based. So can you please help like give us an easy way to get into it that doesn't seem so freaking overwhelming?
Yeah, I would say, because as musicians, artists, creatives, we're all that creative direction, but there are very different types. Like you just said, you guys are probably more just like musical and that direction, and I'm more on like the design, like what you see kind of aspect. So what I would say is you just start with colors, typography, and like creating a logo. That's just
Okay,
something.
pause. Three words, three concepts. I'm not overwhelmed yet, but I could be if we carry on. So
Yeah.
typography.
Yeah, typography is like a huge thing that seems so small, but it really can like give so much personality to your brand. That's the main reason why you want to focus on type. It should never be like left to the last minute. Some people like create this beautiful logo and design and then they leave the typography part of it, whether it's your name in the logo, they leave it last. And that's not how it should be. Type should really be your personality. So you pick a type, whether it's something big and bold and fun, or you do something more cursive and like free, and you can do something thin. There's so many different typefaces out there. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands that you can pick from.
See, I'm overwhelmed. Like,
Yeah,
how do I
it
pick?
is. I
Like,
think
it's
you
like
just,
let's keep in mind, like, I'm not even one to put paint on my walls of my apartment because I'm so scared of picking the wrong color. So something as important as a brand that would live online, it's always felt easier for me to just not do anything about it and let it be what it is.
yeah.
How to get started? How to trust your instincts? Or do you just, you're left, you have to hire someone? Like, what?
I don't think you have to hire someone. I think it's a good idea? Maybe, because we went to school for this. You know, we took classes in typography. We can kind of talk to someone and learn their personality and pick a type that's based off of that. So if you are that type of person who's scared and like can't make a decision or just has no idea or feels overwhelmed, then hiring someone to even help you just with like your initial logo, which would include the colors and the type, that could be really helpful, and it might make you feel like less overwhelmed at first.
But so as a musician, would I need a logo? To me, a logo is more for like a company than a person.
Yeah, and I always go back and forth with that. I've been working with a lot of musicians lately to get them logos, and they do feel after they have it that they really are glad they did it, because they can use it on their website, they can use it on all their social media platforms, and it just gives them that brand consistency, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I'm sure. But like overall, it just kind of helps them like ground their brand to like one thing. So that logo will have what colors they should use, what types they should be using, which would just create consistency through everything that they're doing. Now, a logo can be as simple as just their name. We could just pick a cool type to display their name in, and that's their logo. Logo doesn't have to be something like super involved or like, you see the Nike swoosh. and you know that that's Nike. You don't even have to see the word Nike, and it's a little switch, and you know that. A lot of companies are like that. Think about McDonald's, just the M. You know that's McDonald's without even seeing the full word. So you can do something like that, and then when you become huge and successful, people know that that's just like your brand. That's that little icon. So you can do something like that as well, or you can just have your name. I've done a few with like a name with just some colors, and we pick a really cool font. And then when people see that, they know, oh, that's, they're not confused. There could be a million Julias in the world, but if they see this one particular Julia with her font, they know, oh, well, yeah, I'm watching her YouTube video, or I'm on her Instagram account, or anything like that. So I do think it's important to have a logo, even if it is just your name, but it's just like styled.
And so at what time in your career should you get it? I mean, is like just getting out of school too soon because no one knows you yet? But if you wait too long, then is it like a sudden and like weird to now have a logo if you already have like thousands of people following you? Like what?
Yeah, I don't think it can hurt to do it when you're just starting out. I mean, I think for me, it's like, why not? Because you don't know where your success is going to take you. So if you have 100 followers and you're good and you're happy, then okay, they know you by that logo. And if you have thousands and thousands, then you already have it and you're good to go. So I don't think it hurts to do it at like a young phase in your career. And you can always rebrand. Big companies do that. Small companies do that. I think you're supposed to rebrand your website if you do have a website every 2 to 3 years. So think about that. I mean, it wouldn't hurt if you're 5 years down the road and want kind of a new and improved logo. You can tweak your old one, or you can kind of rebrand from scratch. So you're not set in stone with something that you created, 10 years ago when you were first out of school. I'm actually redoing my website and my logo and brand right now, and I haven't done it in 6 years. But it was just time. I'm older now. I have more experience, and like I obviously did it back in school. And it was just time to like rebrand. So it's never hurts to do something young and then, in a few years change it.
So you're doing your own. How is that process? Like how long does that take you? And what kind of questions do you ask yourself to know in what direction to go?
I actually think it's a lot harder to brand yourself because as a designer, you're a little more picky and you don't really know what you want because you do so many things for other people. You're like, well, I like that and I like this. I actually find it way more difficult as I'm starting to rebrand myself to actually do it. But the questions I ask are like, what do I want their first impression to be when they see this? What do I want them to know about me through my logo? Like, do I want a big and bold font to say I'm here and I'm ready to go? Or do I want something a little more professional and like maybe a little more cursive-y, and I don't even think that's a word, but just, fun and free.
Cursive.
Cursive. We're going to make that.
You heard it here first. Cursory it is.
So I find that for me, it's very difficult to figure out like what I want people to feel when they see my logo and how to react to that as me. But asking a client, I find it very easy. Even just talking to them for 20 minutes, I can tell their personality. And I just kind of go with that. And then when they see the logo, they don't necessarily think, oh yeah, she picked this font because that's my personality. But they see it and they love it because that is them. Same thing with colors. We can kind of discuss what colors you do like as a person, whether you hate the color yellow or you love the color red or whatever. You might have really strong opinions about colors. You might want something big and bright, or you might want something a little more like pastels. So we just kind of talk about that. That's something to think about. And that also goes along with personality, but it more so conveys like emotion, your feelings, and just your like overall experiences. That's kind of what color like draws when people see something. They don't go and like, oh, great, she picked pink. But they go in there and oh, she's fun and bubbly, because pink kind of gives that like vibe. So colors are a little different than type, but when they come together, it just overall screams like you. And I think that's really important as musicians and artists. Like you want your personality, your like yourself to come through it. So those are two things that I think are very important to like think about when you're starting your brand.
I mean, it all sounds so great. I think like for me over the years when I've looked into it, I'm always so scared if I hire someone that I wouldn't be able to keep up with it by myself in the long run. I'm like, okay, I can get somebody to do like a couple things, like give me maybe a template for Instagram or things like that. But then how do I keep it up? And particularly with website of like, okay, they can make me this great website, but then like I have new things to update over time and I mean, I can do some things about website, but I think there's that fear that I would think I'm not the only one to have. How does that work?
I think that's a great point. I think a lot of people are scared about that. I mean, social media nowadays is so hard to keep up with. You have to post all the time to keep up with just social. People are crazy about it. I know it's a lot of work, so I do think that's a big concern. For the website, there are a lot of great sites out there that are pretty easy to use. So if you want, you know, a web designer to come in and just help you get started, that's something to think about. And then if they use like Wix or WordPress or Squarespace or GoDaddy, those are all just kind of generic ones I'm thinking off the top of my head, that you can use. They're pretty self-explanatory. You can go in and update content. You can drag and drop photos in there if you have some updated content that you want to put in. So website, that's what I would kind of do about that. Maybe have someone get you started to create those initial pages, because most likely your initial pages, your about you, your contact form, maybe a gallery of photos of yourself or experiences that you've had or like places that you've worked. All those pages are probably not going to change, just maybe updated. So the updates themselves are not hard, but maybe getting someone to help you originally just kind of create those pages and get you started could be like really helpful and definitely make it less overwhelming. They'll have the visual eye to set things up, and then you can change just like little things. As far as social media, there are a couple sites that do help you know what sizes to create your posts at. For example, Canva is one that I've been working with recently. They have a free version, they have a pro version that you can pay for monthly, and they basically allow you to pick, oh, I'm making a YouTube thumbnail, and they'll have that size already in their program. You pick it, and then you can just put whatever you want in it. So it is pretty easy, but I would say like templates, you can hire someone to possibly like create a few templates for you, whether it's one or like maybe 5 to kind of rotate through. And that way you're just going in and updating the actual text, but the main design is there for you to use.
So is that the sorts of things you would like? What is like, okay, say somebody wants to get branded kind of across platforms, like what is the package you would recommend? Like, would it be 5 Insta templates, and like are there even templates for Facebook? Like
yeah, there are so many. I've learned recently like how many templates there are. I mean, if you think about just YouTube, which I think would be a big platform for your industry, there's like the YouTube banner. So that's the big banner you see at the top. There's your little thumbnail, which is just most likely your face, or you can put your logo there if you wanted to. So that's just 2 for that. And then you have your thumbnail. So when you actually post videos, like you can select a thumbnail to display for that video. So that's 3 just for YouTube. And I think there's a few more if you really wanted to get deep into it. But those would be the 3 main ones. And then Facebook has the same thing. They have your cover photo and they have your profile picture. So I just
those would get branded, because I think we just think of them as like, well, they're just photos. What branding are we looking at here?
Yeah. So I would say your profile picture can kind of stay like fun and just your face, or like an energetic photo, like whatever you want. But your cover photo, if you really want to brand your Facebook for your brand and not just as like a fun social media like outlet, then I would put like your cover photo, like maybe your latest podcast that's coming out or an upcoming show. Like use it to market yourself. I mean, it's there. It's the first thing that people see when they come to your Facebook page. It's big, it's bold, it's at the top, takes up the whole space. So why not use that to market yourself? You can put your latest events, something upcoming, a book you just released, whatever the case, you can use that. And
so what would it be for musicians? Would it be to their website? Would it be to their YouTube channel? Would it be to a particular concert and like a link to that concert? And then they have that template, and so they can change the link in the bottom every time? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so you could just actually write the link out like in the image. You could put the full link if you really wanted to, or you could just say, hey, upcoming show at this location, and it could be an image of the show or anything that relates to whatever you're trying to market. And then in the comment section, you could put the link. So when people click on the actual timeline photo, they could see the comments, and the first one would be the link to the actual, maybe buying tickets to the show or just the events page to it. Anything that relates to it, you could put in the comment section, the caption, anything like that. You could also put the full link in the actual image, but a lot of musicians that I've done recently, it's just been more like, hey, I'm launching this podcast. Here's like my podcast, what's it called? like your title, like where you go to find it. So then people know, oh, I just go to Apple Music and I type in, you know, this title and I'll find the podcast, and I might subscribe to listen to all of them, or just listen to the one that she's talking about or he or she's talking about. So you can do so many things, but I just think it's so important because that timeline photo is the first thing that people see when they come to your Facebook.
That's so interesting. So what about the people that have different quote unquote services? So for example, I'm following this yoga YouTube thing that I love, and they have different playlists. So say a musician does different styles, and they have like them live, and then they have an interview series, and like they have different playlists. Should they use the same template for each? Should they purposefully have a different one that matches the, like, how it gets so complicated so fast?
Yeah, so fast. I would recommend doing a different one. That way, when someone comes to your YouTube channel, they see that thumbnail and they know exactly what they're getting into. So recently, I think I created 6 different templates because the musician I was working with, she does 6 different things. She does like voice reacts. She does her own singing. She does teaching. So for each one, we created within her color scheme that we created. You know, she has about 10 colors that we created, all different shades, and they're fun and bubbly, but we kind of picked 2 for each section of YouTube. So that thumbnail uses these 2 colors, and it says what it is. It says if it's voice reacts, or it says if it's a teaching lesson. But that way, when you initially go to her page, you know exactly, oh, this one is voice reacts, because you see the colors right away, you know what you're getting into. So I do recommend different templates. I think it's super helpful for the user when they go to your channel. They get accustomed to what you're doing consistently.
I always thought the thumbnail was simply whatever YouTube picked for you from
Nope.
that video. I am so behind on all these things. So
Yeah.
what about then other things that I don't use Twitter, but what about the people that have Twitter? Does that also, is that part of the branding?
Yeah, so I haven't done too much with Twitter just because of the clients I've worked with. Twitter has not been their main social media platform. I would say that it's super easy to use because you can just tweet out a link to your Instagram post, or a tweet to a link to a show. So I'd say it's a little less graphical, which is probably why I personally haven't worked as much with it. You can, I think, post photos. So you would probably just use a photo that you're using on Facebook or Instagram and post it with your tweet. But other than that, I don't create anything specifically for Twitter through what I've been doing with my clients, just because it's not their main platform. They're more like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
How can you do branding on TikTok? It changes all the time.
Yeah, TikTok's a new one for me. I think it was just launched in 2020. It's like one of the fastest growing. I don't think it was launched then, but it became one of the fastest growing in 2020. And it's still new and fresh, and I think people are loving it. But it is something I'm still like learning about what we can do with it. So far, the only things I've really done are like help with the profile picture. We've kind of like branded it with the logo. And I think if you wanted to, you can put like a photo in your video, maybe if you edit stuff. That's the only thing I've done, but that's would be for someone who's like really wants to like brand their TikTok. Other than that, I'm not sure there's too much you can do, but we're still, with all my clients, it's still like a new platform and we're learning what they want to even do with it. Usually the client comes to me and be like, well, I have this idea, and we'll see, oh, can we do this? Is it worth it? Is it going to really help your brand? So TikTok's still definitely new and still learning. But with Instagram, I think that one, you know, we've had some time to play around. So you can do Instagram stories. You can have templates that we create, and they can have like, if you want to put up a story and you have like 5 or 6 of you teaching a voice lesson, the first image that pops up in your story, we could have it templatized. So it's, you know, what you're going to be singing, who it's going to be with, an image, a fun graphic, whatever it is. And that way, when someone clicks on your story, that's the first thing that pops up and they know what they're getting into and they keep clicking. That's just one thing you could do. You can do templates for your actual Instagram posts. If you have an upcoming show, say that could be like a whole series. So your Instagram template for your post would be upcoming show, and then it would have like a graphic and location and date. So there's so many different things you can do with just each platform. It is definitely overwhelming, but I think if you take the time to create the templates in the beginning, then it kind of gets easier and easier because all you're doing is changing the template.
So back to my question about the basic package, quote unquote, there's no package, but the basic, like, just so I can wrap my head around it. So to start branding, you would need like what's your basic branding like needs? Like one website and like what for Facebook and what for Insta? Now, are these the main three? Maybe LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a one that's kind of on the back burner for a lot of the clients that I've been working out because their platforms are more vocal. And so they want to be using the YouTube and the TikTok and the Instagram where they can really showcase what their industry is. But for some people, LinkedIn is also a great way. So I would say the top, I think there's 5, I would say, that are the top. Maybe Twitter's thrown in there, but it's definitely YouTube, definitely Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I've even heard of Twitch recently is great for kind of the music and artist industry. You can post your videos. It's kind of similar with that. And then you could get into the LinkedIn and the Twitter, depending on you. But
what is Twitch?
I just recently learned about Twitch. My husband was talking about it. It's a platform where you post your videos. I think it can be live. I think people basically subscribe, and I could be totally wrong, but I think people just go in and they watch videos. You can subscribe to people and see everything they post, and you watch and comment and chat, and it's just another platform to do that. But it would be like similar to like the TikTok and YouTube where it's video.
So what kind of price should musicians be looking at to get like a very first basic branding starter kit?
Yeah, price is so hard because every designer is so different. I mean, obviously, if you get a new designer out of school who's just like looking to start up maybe they're just doing freelance on the side, you're going to get a very different price as if you hire someone who's a little more established in the median price range, and you can go very expensive and hire very famous, designer. So, I mean, you range from $50 to thousands of dollars. So I always find that's very hard to give price recommendations to people, but because you're just kind of starting out your brand, I think if you go in knowing that you're going to get what you pay for, I think that's always I think that's in life, that's a good rule of thumb.
Definitely true for musicians.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys, I feel like, no, it's very similar to design. You get what you pay for. But, I think just knowing, if you go in to a designer knowing, hey, I think I want if you give examples, that's always a good idea. If you see something you like, it can definitely help the designer, feel they understand you better. If you give a few examples, maybe a few colors, oh, I really liked this big and bold type, then they'll know, okay, this is what the person's looking for. It definitely like eliminates some back and forth between the designer and the client with like revisions, and just like rounds and going back and forth between what you do and don't like. So if you kind of go in knowing that, for me personally, I just do it based on like 2 revisions in the beginning. So I'll come up with like rough drafts basically and send them to the client. And then when they come back, that revision is included in that initial price. So I would kind of, if you look around for a designer, try to get someone who's going to work with you at least for 1 or 2 revisions, because you never know, that first round you might come back and it's not your style at all. Or you might love it right off the bat. I've had people, we don't even do revisions because they're like, I love that, So I think it depends on like your personality as well. Like if you have no idea going in, or if you have like some idea of what you like. But it also depends if you just want a logo or if you want the whole package. If you want all those social media templates and you want the website. Now, website design is very different and definitely more costly. But if you want to just start out with a logo and maybe a few templates, I think you're looking at hopefully a few $100s to get, started. Say you want your Facebook cover photo, you want your YouTube cover photo, maybe a YouTube thumbnail, maybe let's just say 3 of those. I think that would kind of be a base start. You could do an Instagram story template. That's not very hard or time consuming because it's small and it's fast. So it needs to be clear and concise. And so I would say you'd maybe start with 5 templates for social media and a logo. Maybe that's a great starting point. And then you can see where it takes you from there. If you want to then brand a whole website so people can contact you through that and find you on the web, then maybe that's like a second phase.
Where would you go to find someone to do that? Like, how do you pick?
That's a great question. I know a lot is word of mouth. I've gotten some jobs just through people, spreading my name. You can go online. There's a couple online platforms where it's for designers and you can, I think it's called, I'm going to say it wrong. Is it Fiverr?
Yeah, I've heard
Is
of
that right?
Fiverr.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
I was like,
But
am I
it's
making that up?
spelled Fivver.
Yes. Yes. So you can like go in there and type you're looking for a graphic designer. And they have different, like if you're looking for web design or logo design, I think they break it all out for you. So you could start there, a basic web search. I would ask friends too, because if they've used someone, they can tell you how they work. Designers are very different on how they work. Even me and my best friend, we are both designers, went to the same school, and we work very differently. So it's kind of funny, but I would just ask like kind of how they work. Do they let you have revisions? What's their timeline? Sometimes designers are a couple days, sometimes they're a couple weeks. I think it depends on the length of the project. So ask those questions. Don't be afraid. You're the one paying them, you're the client, so get what you want.
I think it's so funny because having this conversation, I realized for me, the musician that needs to have branding is the musician that like is trying to be the front man or like a band, or they're trying to like have a solo career. And the kind of musicians I'm surrounded with and the kind of musician I am is much more of a side man. It's like I'm hired, I'm a freelance musician, and it's not many people I know have brands. And so then it's almost like nerve wracking. It's like, well, I don't want to be the only one having this thing. What if I look silly having it when like I'm not a front man kind of person? So like, how shouldn't I, why, how?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just so important. And first of all, I think it's fun. I think it's fun to have a brand and say, yeah, that's me. Like that, you're still trying to get jobs. You're still trying, you still want a web presence, because if you don't, then how do people know about you? So you're still trying to get those jobs. So everyone should really have a brand, whether, like I said, whether it's just something really simple as your name in a cool font. And it doesn't even have to be a big and bold font or anything like that. It can be really simple, but spacing is a huge thing. And a designer just kind of would help you like make sure it looks professional, looks like someone wants to hire you. I always think like if someone came to my website, are they going to want to hire me? Are they going to want to take the time? Because initial, like your first impression is huge. So if someone comes to your website and it looks like it was built in 1980, are they really going to want to take the time to keep going? And the answer is maybe, but if you have like a killer design or even just something fun and bright and something that shows your personality, they're going to want to keep reading and learn more about you. And then you have a better chance of them staying on your page longer and learning more about you and potentially, getting the job, or at least an interview. Whatever the situation is, it's going to help you grab their attention and keep them there.
So do you have any stories of maybe if you have had musicians clients, of people who actually did get hired more? Because I think there's that fear of like, well, if I'm gonna invest this money, like musicians, particularly younger musicians, don't always have a lot of extra budget or room in their budget. Then it's like, if I'm gonna spend this money, I want to make sure that there's some kind of a return for it. Is that really something that's so concrete like that as far as return on investment?
I think it depends on how they use it after we, as the designers, give them the product, how they use it. I've worked with two very young artists. I think they were 14 and 15 years old, something like that. And they're just getting started, but they wanted to start young because when they do go out and want to get jobs or performances, they want to be able to have something to show the potential, employer, if you want to call it that, that looks a little more professional because they are younger. They want to look like, they know what they're doing and that they're ready to be serious. So that's pretty much why they hired me to get them a logo, because they wanted to start young and make sure that they were going to be able to compete with the people who have been in the industry a lot longer. So that these were very recent, so I don't have any like huge success stories yet, but I do think I've seen them on Instagram, and their followers have gone up a little bit. And then the one really big success story is recently we redid a website, and SEO is like search optimization. So basically you can plug in keywords on your website that help you get found in Google. We went up 400% in
Ooh.
website views in 1 month, just
Wow.
based on like me working with the client to like figure out what she wants to be known as. So we would plug in keywords, we would, you basically tag photos, you do all this stuff on the back end. And it all seems kind of like silly because you're like, how is this really going to help? And she actually texted me and she sent me a screenshot of the analytics. And she was like, I can't believe like this worked. She was like, this is 400% like based off 1 month. So it really does, like there are things you can do in the back end of your website to get searched more. You can actually do that in YouTube as well. I actually learned that this morning. Google bought out YouTube, so they use the same search. So you can do the same thing. You can tag your videos a certain way with titles and descriptions, and it helps you get found. So that would help your followers, your subscribers, your views on your videos. So that's one thing also you can do with YouTube and just your website is little things that help you get found. So I do think that it does help, and that would be my biggest success story is that one recently with the 400%. That's just crazy numbers.
That is crazy. So what are some mistakes you see, like very common mistakes that people can fix by themselves without needing to get a logo and a brand, like some basic things that they can at least avoid doing or at least cleaning up on their own?
I'm a huge advocate for consistency. I think if you're consistent, whether it's bad or good, like it's there and people will know you because of that. So if you use the same thumbnail for like that whole series in YouTube, like I go to your page and I'm like, oh, they like at least are being consistent. Like they know what they're doing. It at least looks like they're trying to make a brand. So that's something super easy if you're just consistent, whether you crop your videos the same way or, you post them on certain days. I think that's a big one. If someone knows, oh, they're posting a new video because it's Wednesday. I mean, followers, they love that kind of stuff. It's like you just know like they're going to do that. And it kind of makes you look forward to it, especially if the new artist has a new React video on Tuesdays, it's something that you can follow and get interested in. And it all comes down to consistency as an artist. So
what are some things as far as cleaning up? If you look back and you're like, oh gosh, it's a mess. Like what makes it a mess and how to clean up the mess?
Yeah,
I guess Instagram, for example.
Yeah, Instagram, I've seen a couple, and I'm not even the best personally. On my fun page, I just do things just because it's fun and it's social. But if you're trying to market yourself like in a business Instagram account, I think, sizing your photos correctly. So if you have photos from the past that are all kind of over the place, maybe just cleaning those up, getting rid of them. Or just starting from now, like make sure like starting now, once you realize like, oh, I could do this a little better, like start from there. Like everyone makes mistakes, especially when you're young, you don't know what you're doing. You're not really sure, especially when Instagram first came out, no one knew. I look back at some of the things I posted when I first got an account and it's crazy. It's like, why did I post that? Like, was that really like necessary? Was that fun? Like, is that what I want to show on my page? So I think just having a focus of what you should be posting and doing that consistently is really important, whether it's sizing of the photos, what you're posting. And I think using hashtags, that's still a thing. That's how you get found on Instagram. So make sure those are consistent too. Like if you have a specific hashtag or theme or, someone you're trying to shout out to, whatever like the case is, just use those hashtags. I think they recommend like at least 3. I usually do 3 to 5 that are like the main source of the photo. And that way you can get found pretty easily when people search.
What are some common tips you have for websites? Because you do web design.
I do.
Some common pitfalls to avoid.
Overcrowding. I would say that's probably like my biggest pet peeve is when people just throw so much information on a page. No one is going to sit there and scroll through all of that. I think when you go to a website, you're looking for something in particular. So having just that, especially on your homepage, if someone wants to learn all about you, they're going to go to the about page. So on your homepage, maybe just have like 3 or 4 words about you and say, read more, or a tiny little paragraph, like 2 to 3 sentences about you, and then have a read more button that takes you to maybe your resume or your full about page with all your history of where you went to school and like all that kind of things. But having space and like white space, they call it. It's like where your eye can breathe. So if someone comes to your site, they're not super overwhelmed and they don't know where to read first. You want to make sure their eye has somewhere to breathe so they can take the time to figure out on the page what they actually want to read. It needs to be concise, I would say, not overwhelming. And then use your tabs, the main menu. This is 2020. Websites have been here for a long time. People know if they want to find something, they go to the main menu and click a different tab. So your homepage should really be the main points of your website, whether that's to brand yourself and say about you and maybe what you do, like why someone would come to your page or hire you. And that's kind of it. Keep it simple.
No, we're doing this interview with COVID still in full effect, and musicians are currently, most of them, not having jobs across the world. So
Yeah.
when on one hand, a lot of people have time so they can look into doing branding. On the other hand, is that the best time when they're looking for jobs in other industries? Should they wait until they are back working to implement a brand?
I personally don't think so. I think this is the time to do it. I think, you have the time. And even for me, I have more time on my hands right now than I know what to do with. And that's probably why I'm redoing my brand myself. I think, it's never going to hurt. It's never going to hurt to do it now. And even if you start now, you can always launch it when things go back to normal. You don't have to launch your new and improved brand, until you want to. But getting it started now, you'd have more time to create those templates and figure out what you really want it to look like. So I say, why not start now? It's never going to hurt. It's not going to hurt if you're trying to get a new job in a different industry. They're not that's not, I just feel like that's not a good reason not to do it now.
And last question, what are some misconceptions people have about your job?
That it's easy. I think some people think, oh, well, it's just colors and type, but it takes a lot of time to get things right. It does. And just, I think in logo design too, like the whole branding aspect, people think that, just for my earlier example of the Nike swoosh, like that wasn't just something someone checked and they were like, done, it looks like it was, but a lot of times when it looks like it's that simple, that's when it takes the most time, because you're trying to think, who am I trying to reach? Like, who is my client base? Who's going to be looking at this? How do I want people to look at me as a brand? So I think sometimes when it's the most simple is when it's the hardest as a designer to get that to look simple.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for all of that. That I feel so much clearer, and I definitely didn't know any of it. So I'm sure it helped a lot of people beyond myself. So thank you for taking this time with us. Everyone, if you want to know more about Morgan or find her services, you can find her on morgandipietro.net, and I will put the link so you can see it. DiPietro is spelled DiPietro, morgandipietro.net. Thank you again, Morgan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.